the introductions, and then we walk you through the whole bit of it. So my name is Salman Qureshi, and I'm Chief Innovation Officers of TheCoded. Joining me is the Wasiluddin. He is our security and cloud expert. Um, Let me give you a little bit brief about TheCoded, what we do, and how is it related to this webinar which we are hosting today. Basically, at TheCoded, we help Microsoft enterprises modernize for the agentic era, turning the legacy applications into Copilot and agent-ready system on Azure, which is the new buzzword in the Microsoft world. We combine AI-assisted discovery and refactoring with data readiness, governance, and security by design so the team can move from pilot to production safely. Our approach delivers measurable outcomes throughout the repeatable 90-day playbook, which we are going to demonstrate in the two of our case studies. We have taken from one ISV and one of the FEDs. And these were the recently completed projects we have done with those our Microsoft other partners. Today, we will show you how modernization changes in the agentic era. This is not only about moving workloads to Azure. That's what we want to make sure. It's about making apps, data, tools, operations, and security ready so Copilot and agent can safely complete the real work. So moving on to the agenda slide, I just want to make sure that you guys have a clarity what you are going to walk away with it today at the end of the 45 minutes. This intention of this, we have a intention to complete this whole webinar in 45 minutes. So I will request you to hold back your question and answer. We'll take them at the end of the seminar since we have a very tall order. So in the 45 minutes, you will leave with a practical definition of agent ready, of a 5-step path, which we are very proud. We have proud about that. We have defined and designed this methodology, and we will also map those 5 steps to our real world threats. Two use cases. I will give you the brief in the next slide. What are those use cases and the case studies which we have completed. And we'll also demonstrate how the 90-day execution playbook played out in those case studies. And then we'll end up with a Q&A. So in the nutshell, we'll talk why AI powered modernization is now, and then the coded intelligent path and the governance and security in the agentic era and the 90 days playbook. Now moving on to the next slide, which is I just want to walk you through the 2 case studies which we have selected for this seminar, so people, the folks can really relate what we are talking about, our approach, our tools, and our methodology. So the 2 cases we are going to discuss or will walk you through will be is the case number 1 is the government benefit intake, and case number 2 will be referring as ISV support. So ISV support for the Copilot to the agent. The context for the case 1 is that an applicant uploads an ID and pay stubs. The intake system must validate and classify the PI and route to the right queue and keep a complete trails for the compliance. The problem which we were challenged with was the legacy portals, and the manual handoff and slow throughput creates rework and leave evidence gaps that delay the ATO and the audit readiness. The solution which we proudly presented and implemented were the compliance first workflow approach, which was basically automated validation and PI classification, policy-based routing, traceable PI summaries from approved sources, and every access or action were logged with identity justification and the timestamps to back up and to provide the proof to the compliance. and the audit teams. The KPI targets which we deliver was 50% faster intake cycle, 95% control evidence completeness for the wave one scope, and we'll talk about how we selected the wave one as we walk through through the webinar, and 30% reduction in the ATU prep time. And the testimonial which we got from this Fed client program manager was that deliverables were concrete enough to brief leadership and auditors in the same meeting. So this is a big takeaway to showcase. The second case study is ISV support. Copilots to agent. Here, the context is ticket volume were increasing while customers expect faster resolution, support, and product teams need better efficiency and higher release velocities. So the problem we faced with were the Copilot helps draft responses, but manual keeps the mean time to repair high and engineering becomes reactive with monthly releases and hot fixes. The solution we proposed and implemented was to evolve to the governed support agent that can take approve actions and through tools contracts, allow list, and runtime policy and audit logs. The KPIs which we deliver showcase where the ticket deflection was increased from 9% to 30 in 12 weeks time, which is a big achievement, and mean time to repair was reduced from 3.2 days to less than 2 days, so approximately 1.6, and monthly weekly releases with hot fixes. Testimonial which we got from the product lead was that was the first plan that AI features operational KPI and not vanity metrics. Now, giving you a little bit more on these, basically what kind of platforms we were having, so you can have a traction there and you can relate what we are talking about. Uh, in the government benefits, we have the platform components on the Azure where the channel apps, basically they consisted of encompasses the citizen portals, intake console behind the Azure front doors in API management. In the workflows, we have the logic apps, durable functions with the service bus queues. And from the data side, we have the Azure SQL and PostgreSQL for the case data. Retrievals were basically Azure AI Search Over, Approved Corpora, and Azure Open AI for the grounded summaries only. So MCP governance for the agent actions were the tool contracts which defined the schemas, and for creating the case and requesting the documents, routing, and other stuff. And the runtime policies enforces approval for high-risk actions and rate time. Now moving on to the next case, what was our platform in the ISV support? Basically, the platforms component on the Azure Work Support Console behind API management, microservices on the containers apps, and knowledge retrievals were there. Azure AI search over the allow list KB sources. Uh, we had the CI and CD pipeline with the Azure DevOps and GitHubs, and action with test scans and canary and the rollback tested. Observability were basically App Insight and log analytics and tickets ID and tenants ID. And from the MCP governance for the agent actions were the tools contracts were for the updates of the tickets, request the log, and allow list by the role. And the runtime policies requires approval for destructive actions and enforce tenants boundaries controls. So that was the background. So you can, when we talk in details about our methodology and how we did what, so you can relate it, what's going on and what we were able to achieve. Now, moving on to the next slide is basically here we want to talk to you about the AI-powered modernization stack and why the combo shifts the art of possible. So we will basically here at TheCoded, we bring modernization delivery, governance discipline in AI implementation patterns aligned to Azure. We'll keep the here actionable talks, and we have shown that in both of the case studies, which artifacts need to be focused on. For example, in our FET case studies or government benefits, we were able to focus and deliver them control register with evidence links mapped to agency policies, traceability for each automated decision and action, and change gates approved by the security before. The testimonial which we got from the security lead was that we trusted it because it looks like an operating model, not a slide deck. In the second case, which is ISV support, basically ISV support Copilot to agent, the artifacts we were able to focus and deliver was tool registry plus allow list for the agent action, stage evaluation of the retrieval and action success, and the release gate with observability and rollback. The feedback which we got from SRE manager was the approach respected SRE reality, which is why it shipped. So we don't just give the MVP product demo, we delivered the product at Coded. Moving on to the next slide, here we want to show you what has changed since the Ignite happened 2025. The new buzzword in the Microsoft arena is basically agent first or agent ready. So the shift is not just better models, what the customers are expecting. They expect the Copilot agent to complete workflows, not only answers the questions. That forces a new modernization and state stable API governance, governed retrievals of the documents with validation, control tool calling, and production operation with audit trails. So if we map this to our case study, just to get the traction from you, is that in the case study one, government benefits, basically what we were able to deliver was the 62% evidence completeness, meant audit, required manual reconstruction. So evidence on demand for the 22 controls in the first slide was delivered. Metrics to track was the time to produce audit evidence hours. Now, in the case study number 2, which was the ISV support Copilot to the agent, we were basically were able to increase our ticket deflection from 9% onwards because Copilot could not safely act. And so we built in those matrices in to end-to-end task completion rate for the top 10s. And the testimonial which we got from the VP customer success was basically answers are nice, resolution is what customer pay for. So these were the takeaway. Now, let me walk you before I hand on the baton to Vasil. This what do we mean from cloud ready to agent ready? So here in the at the at TheCoded, basically we cloud ready move workloads. That's what we want you to take away from this today's seminar. Agent ready enables safe action. And this is what is the punchline for the whole of it. So we want to make sure that you understand and and take it on your agenda. And when you get the job done, safe actions should be enabled at the same time. We at TheCoded, we need modular services behind APIs, governed data for the retrieval and approved tools. Otherwise, Pilot remains the demo. So that is one thing. In the case of case study 1, government benefit intake modernization, we were able to reduce the cycle time from 12.4 days to 6.5, and audit evidence was increased from 62% baseline to 95%, which is a very, very big achievement. And the policy violations targets under 1 per 1,000 agent actions. That's a very high number, which we are claiming. So we have a backup for that. The testimonial which we got from the program director for the first time, security and audit were part of the plan, not the break at the end. In the case study number 2, as we support Copilot, basically we were able to increase the deflection from 9% to 30%. And mean time to repair was basically reduced from 3.2 baseline to target 1.6. And release cadence, monthly baseline targets weekly with 2 or fewer hot fixes. The feedback was basically from VP support saying that we finally had a clear path from Copilot answers to agent action without scaring the SRE. Now, in the next slide, I will hand on the baton to the Vasil. Vasil will now talk you through the minimum viable acceptance criteria, which we use as a practical gate before agent touch production. Vasil, over to you.
Thank you, Salman. So we will begin with what does the agent ready actually means. The minimum viable acceptance criteria for being agent ready, and at a minimum, there are 4 things that have to be true. So your retrieval success sources must be approved with the PII labels enforced. Your tools need a real registry with the allow list and the rate limits. The operations have to support tracing, versioning, and the rollback, and the security has to include the threat modeling and the incident hooks. So if any of that missing, you are not just slowing down the review, but you are setting yourself up to the fail in production. So now let me ground this with our 2 real case threats. So we will take an example from our cases, the case 1 and the case 2, the government and the ISVs. Uh, Starting with the government case, this was a compliance first environment. So where the audit evidence mattered from the day one. So the key moment in the story was the compliance acceptance test. So the results were very clear, and the evidence completeness improved from 62% to 96%, and with the wave 1 control. So investigation time for an action dropped from 4 hours to 35 minutes, and the ATO packages preparation went from 10 weeks drop down to the 7. So driven by the automated evidence collection. So as per our customers compliance lead, our auditors could trace what the system did, who approved it, and where the evidence lived. So take another case, which is ISV support. So here the moment that mattered was operational acceptance. So proving the agent could take safe actions, retrieval precisions at 5 jump from 0.62 to 0.83 in a staged evaluation, and the tool action success rates improved from 71 to 92. So moving on to next slide, and this is about the coded intelligent path, the 5 steps. So we deliver the agent-ready outcomes through a repeatable 5 steps path. So I will show you each steps with the artifacts, gates, KPIs you take to the production. So the step 1, that is about the discovery. So, and to discover, the ingest repositories, schema logs, and the tickets to build a live picture of your system. From that, it produces the service inventory, dependency graph, and the clear risk flags. So the practical output is simple but powerful. Uh, Service catalogs and integration maps that let you sequence modernization safely without breaking critical path. So let me show you what that looks like in the practice. via two examples, two cases. The first government case, this was in compliance first program. So Discover was applied right at the start of benefit intake. So in just 8 business days, the team mapped 147 services and 312 integrations, and the unknown dependencies dropped to 743 from 43 to 7. It identified as 11 data domains, including 4 high sensitivity sources, and reduced the unknown integration risk by 84%. So, as per our customer stack lead, we found the hidden dependencies that would have derailed the wave one. So that is about the case one of the government, and another case that is from the ISV support. So here the Discover set the foundation for the ticket deflection and faster release velocity. So the system indexed around 1.2 million knowledge base articles across the 9 data sources and identified as 64 tool endpoints required for the end-to-end support workload. So coverage on the top support intents improved from 78% before and cleaning up to the 92% after. So in other words, so the inventory steps stopped trivial knowledge from being architecture. So moving to the step two. So once it's discovered, the next step is to assess for the Azure readiness. So assessment is where we avoid a one size fit all, and this is where we apply for the 6 R's map lending patterns and bring the compliance in early. We use that to select the first modernization slice with a clear success KPIs. So let me walk you through the two examples where the case one of the government organization. So then in that case, the assessment focused on the designing for the compliance from the start. So the so the first wave slice combined eligibility pre-check with the document intake, and compliance gates were defined upfront for 22 controls, and evidence required requirement were mapped before any build begins. So the success KPIs was clear. It reduces the cycle time for eligibility pre-check by 50%, and as per the organization's the CIO CISO, we got to yes faster because the compliance was designed in. So taking another case, that's the ISV support. So here the assessment was about the moving fast. So without taking on unnecessary risk, the first wave slice included the entitlement checks and guided troubleshooting and RMA initiations, which guide rails applied to the 14 high risk actions. So the KPI target was a 30% ticket deflection across the top 10 intents. So here the risk gates requires a human approval for refunds and entitlement changes and the high value RMA creations. So as per the vice president of the product from the customer, the risk getting kept us from over automating too early. Moving on to the next step, that is the step three. So once we are done with the discovery and the assessment, we move to the refactor and test. So that's a very important step. So in this case of the assessment, focus on uh, designing. Excuse me. Sorry, so have some throat infection. So the step three is the refactor and test. So refactor and test is where the AI really accelerates the modernization, but gates are what make it safe. So AI can refactor code fast, but speed without the control creates a new kind of debt. um, what we do instead in is pair AI acceleration with the quality, security, supply chain gates that protects the production system as they change. There are three pillars. So the first one is the human in the loop approvals for the high impact changes. So the critical decisions stay accountable. The second is the test automation and the coverage gates to stop regression before they ship. And the third one is a software supply chain controls, including the SBOM generation and the SPE workflows. So we know exactly what running and where the risk is. So these gates prevents agent debt and let team modernize without breaking trust. So let me ground this with the two examples. The case one with the government where the environment was compliant first. So the refactor in the test had the stand up to the uh, audit scrutiny. And on a wave one services, the coverage gates increased from 35% to the 72%. Taken, and let me share the statement from the delivery manager from our customer that their quality gates were the different between speed and chaos. And for them, this is what it is. Moving to the another case where the ISV supports. So here the goal was the faster release velocity and without operational instability. So the test automation more than the double from 410 to over a 1060 tags. And the CI failure rates dropped from the 22% to the 9%, and the hot fixes fell from 6 per month to just 2, and the pipeline time shrink from the 42 minutes to just 25 minutes. So as per their SRE lead, we shipped the faster because the pipeline was a clear, and not just because we took a risk. So the refactor and the test isn't just about rewriting the code faster. It's about putting the right gate in the place and quality, security, and supply chain so AI delivers speed and confidence. Moving to the next step, that's a step for the target architecture on Azure. So on a target pattern puts an API management right at the front door for all services and tools. So for most modern workloads, we use the Azure functions or container apps, and we only bring in the AKS when there's a real need of it. So on the data side, services are built from the governed retrievals, often powered by the Azure AI searches. And across the whole platform, the governance is consistent. So Entra, Purview, Defender, Sentinel, and the monitors from the guardrails, from the identity, scrutiny, and observability. So let me show you how that play out into the practice. And taking the example from the first case is this was a compliant first scenario where the audit evidence really mattered. So in the target architecture, we achieved the 94% of PII tagging coverage across approved retrieval sources, all high sensitivity data paths ran over the private connectivity, and 100%. And in stage testing, we had a zero policy violation in the first production slice. So as per the compliance lead, we could finally explain the system to the auditors in a one diagram. So that was a huge gap. I think that was missing, and that has covered. The second case is as a ISV support, and the goal here were ticket deflection and the faster release cycles. So with the target architecture in place, retrieval precisions at the five hits the 83%, and his hallucinations dropped by the 41%. So after hardening tool contract, and the tool error rate fell from nearly a 7% to under the 2. So the platform owner summed it up as like a APM policy control was the key to safe scale. So let's come up to explore the next step. That's a step 5. But before that, we will talk about the Azure Agent Ready Modernization high level reference so we can understand the system. So let me walk you through the reference architecture, and from left to right, on we will talk about the from at the left, the user entered through the API management layer, and this is where the authentication, throttling, and a policy lives. So nothing reaches the system without an identity. So and the limits and the guardrails are already applied. So moving to the right, the agent operates it in the middle, but they don't act freely. They call the governed tools uh, with a stable version contract, and those contracts defines what an agent can do and how often it can do it, and under what conditions. So that's what makes the agent actions predictable and reversible. So below that, you will see the data and the retrieval sources, and these are raw and or ad hoc, and they curated and approved and labeled, including the PII and the sensitivity tags, so the agent retrieves the right information without creating the compliance risk. So running underneath, everything is a shared observability and a security rails. So this is critical, and every agent action is traced to a identity and a request ID. You can investigate incidents, generate evidence, and roll back tools or models route safely without guessing what happened. And this isn't theoretical. Let me show you the proof point. Starting with the governance, the case one. So in a case one, in a compliance first environment, this architecture enables the full traceability, and 100% of the agent action were tied to the identity and request ID. So evidence pack generation dropped from the 6 hours to just 45 minutes, and in the wave one control, and the incident time fell from 4 hours to just 35 minutes. And as per the compliance lead from the customer, our auditors could trace what the system did, who did approved it, and where the evidence lived. Taking an example from ISV support case, and his same architecture drove an operational outcomes, end-to-end task completion for top 10 intents increases from 64% to the 88%, and the agent action fails rate dropped from the 9% to 3%. So that shows a very good numbers that are achieved through the system. So so the head of engineering from the customers were very happy with the state that the tool governance gave us the confidence to let the agent touch real system. So when you look at this diagram, so what you are really seeing is control without friction. So an architecture that lets agents move fast while keeping security, compliance, operations from in a view. So moving to the step 5, I would like to hand it over to the Salman. Uh,
Thank you,
Salman, over to
Vasil.
you.
I will take it from here for the slide and the next. So what we are trying to show you the step 5, how we validate, operate, and govern the agent. So in the step 5 is where we make sure the pilot becomes the product. So we enforce the CI/CD gates, agent governance, tools governance, and FinOps guardrails. This is how we help the customer to scale beyond a demo without losing compliance, security, or the cost control. Taking the example case one, government benefit or Fed benefit intake modernization. Here, what we were able to showcase the KPIs that audit evidence completeness improved to 96%, investigation time for an agent action reduced from 4 hours to 35 minutes, and the cycle time was reduced for 12.4 days to 5.1 days, and the backlog dropped from 18,000 to 11,200 in 12 weeks' time. Deputy CIO said that we move faster and reduce risk at the same time. That is rare. Let's move on to the case 2, where we achieve how we demonstrate the validate, operate, and govern agent. So here in the ISV support, the KPIs which we were able to demonstrate was the ticket deflection reached 28% within the 10 weeks, only 10 weeks, and mean time to reduce to 1.5 days from 3.2 is was a big achievement. And the testimonial which we got, that weekly release became boring again in a good way. That was said by the SR leads. Moving on to the next slide, I will hand it over back to Vasil to take us to the agent operation, high level control, and runtime. Vasil.
So thank you so much. So this is about the agent operations, the high level control and the runtime architecture. So to scale the agent safely, we separate the control plane from the runtime. So the control plane is where the consistency lives. It includes the identity, policy, security, observability, and the tool governance. So it defines who can act, what they are allowed to do, and how actions are monitored, and how we respond when something goes wrong. So the runtime is where the execution happens, and that API management agent tools and data sources runtime changes frequently. So new workflows, new tools, new integrations. The key idea is we let that runtime move fast, and because the control plane stays stable. So let's take two cases for an example. And here the control plane made the compliance scale across the waves. Onboarding a new workflow into the governance was targeted under the 5 days. So just over the 80% of the control procedures evidences automatically, and the policy exceptions were kept under 2 per release. So as per the customers, the enterprise architect, so the control plane made the scaling to wave to predictables. So and another example with the ISV supports, where in this environment the control plane enabled the faster expansion without the instability. So the time to onboard a new tool dropped from 10 days to just 3, and changing failure rate fell from 18% to just 7%, and the rollback time stayed under the 10%, 10 minutes to disable a tool when needed. So as the platform engineering from the customer, once governance was templated, onboarding new actions was fast. So separating the control plane from the runtime isn't extra architecture. It's what turns the agent scaling from a bespoke effort into a safe, repeatable system. So let's move to the 10 days uh, playbook, and I would like to Salman to hand over from here.
All right, thank you, Vasil. It's a 90-day playbook. here we want to demonstrate our repeatable execution motions. Basically, in the top bullets, we are displaying that it has been broken to the weeks, how we deliver the weekly waves. And first day is the discovery. Second week, we do the assessment pack and the delivery waves. And now let me walk you and ground you how these play out in the case of the each of the case studies. So for the week 1 to 2, basically our focus has been in this playbook. The way we have designed is to discovery outputs, dependency map, first slides the plan. So what does it mean? It means the map the systems, APIs, data sources, queues, and risk, and then choose the first slide with the help of our stakeholders. It has to be bought and it has to be achievable and measurable. In the government benefit intakes, what we were able to deliver in the first slides was the submit application, validate and classify the PI, create the case and route to the queue. So case management was covered, intake portal was also covered. The KPI we were able to give the intake cycle time in the first 2 weeks. From in the case of ISV support, what we did first slice was basically to summarize the tickets, retrieve the KB, draft the responses, and the KPI to watch or read showcase was the current deflection rates and MTTR baselines. And it was all getting the information, telemetry information, ticket flows from Jira and ServiceNow, which were basically main repository. Let's move to the second phase, which is week 3 to 6. In this, what we do, we basically refactor for slides, test and gates, and security posture is improved. That's our main target. What it means? It means to build the slide with the quality gate, policy, and control. So it passes real security review. In the case of government benefit, uh, case, we were able to implement the validation routing and means showing demonstrating percentage control evidence capture automatically. In the case of ISV support, we harden the retrievals and add the tools and allow list for the save. The KPI to watch was the deflection trends upward and reducing the escalation. Moving on to the next phase was the week from 7 to 10, where we deploy on Azure, expose our via APIM, and connect governed data for the retrieval. Like moving, it works to in a demo to its run in the production. That's the crux. In the case of the government benefit, in case we deployed the behind the APIM connects only the approved corpora for the retrievals, and we were able to demonstrate how the queue time reduction uh, drastically and unauthorized access attempts were blocked. In the ISV case, we were able to demonstrate the mean time to repair improvement from 3.2 to under 2. Let's move on to the last bit of the phase, which is weeks 11 to 13. Uh, in this last phase, what we do is to stabilize, measure KPI, and plan for the wave 2 if the client is ready. So what it means is to stabilize the operations, prove the KPIs, choose the next wave. If what we did in the case 1 government benefit, we were able to convert audit evidence into repeatable controlled registry. Um, and the KPIs we were able to deliver were 50% intake cycles, and ATU prep time was reduced by 30%. To close this one is 90 days playbook is we want to make sure that you walk away with this message that at Coded, we don't sell a platform, we deliver a measurable slice. For government, it is faster intake with audit evidence. For ISV, it is deflection and mean time to repair with governs tool action. Then we scale in the delivery. I know that we are overshooting the time which we have set, which was 11:45 in from the EST. and 8:45 for the PST, but we are already 11:51 here in EST and 8:51. So we'll try to wrap it up soon. If you guys have other engagements, you can go ahead and you can always come back to the recording, which we'll be sharing as once we close it. So I'm going to complete this and we'll try to take the Q&A in the end. Let's move on to the next slide. This slide is how we do. I want to rub here the engagement options we have and the Microsoft co-sell. So we engage and how we align Microsoft accounting using the same repeatable approach that deliver outcomes in our two case studies for the case of the government benefits. Day one was the remote discovery, and we map the basically intake workflows, where PI lives and the systems requires, and we also figure out the API private endpoints and what audit evidence is missing. And output what we deliver was basically a risk heat map for the ATO readiness and evidence gaps. In the case of ISV, we map ticket flows, and output was what to keep as Copilot assist versus what can become agent. So the week one package, we turned the snapshots into roadmaps with complete gates and 90% day slides. I'm skipping a little bit of it, that says, since we are running the time, but I just want to touch the main points here. Delivery in the next phase is the delivery waves. And then here we deliver with the measurable KPI, so this does not stay in pilot mode. Where as far as the co-sales assignment is concerned, alignment is concerned, Microsoft Teams, we align these deliverables to the account plan and adoptions milestones, so the customers get a repeatable path to the production. One more bit before I switch to the next slide is I want to rub these five cards which I am displaying. The identity is about basically least privilege for the human agents. And number two card is about the data where PI tags and policy and private endpoints stays. And in the case of the um, uh, card number three, tools where approve MCP servers and connectors lives. And in the card number four, audit, where evidence retention and compliance logs is kept for the proof. And in the last, not the least, release date is basically gated pipeline and rollback plans with tested. So whether you are a government agency or an SIV, the engagement options are designed to get you a measurable first slice quickly, and the five rails are what make Copilot agent safe to run in production. Next is our agentic era production gate identity date tools by MCP. If an agent can retrieve only approval dates, calls only allowable tools under runtime policy. And that means then you are ready for the protection. Uh, okay, we'll now move to the next slide and I will hand over this checklist to go over to Vasil. Vasil, please.
Thank you, Salman. So this one is where the last slide we do have for the question and answers. So we talk about the governance and the security checklist. So in a reality, so check for the agentic AI is every organization can demo an agent, and the question is whether you can run it safely in the production or defend it in the front of the security compliance and auditors. These five pillars are the minimum governance rails we use, right? So the identity, data, tools, ops, and security. So where the identity, where every agent must have an intra identity where which scope permissions. That means you always know who acted and who can enforce the least privileges. And in the data plane, The agent only retrieve from the approved sources, and the PII labels are enforced, and the private endpoints are used where required. And this is how you prevent data leakage and policy violations. Whereas the tools via the MCP, this is where the agentic systems becomes enterprise grade. Tools are registered, described by contracts, and allow listed and governed at the runtime through the MCP. So the agent can only call approved actions under the policy. Moving to the operations, so you need the tracing logs and rollback gates for the every deployment. So the agent change behavior. So you need versioning and the ability to roll back safely. So as far as the security is concerned, so we threat model the agent like any other systems, and we add the runtime protections and incident response hooks so security team can detect the abnormal tool usage and response quickly. So the key message, these aren't extra, these are what make the agent deployable. So if you want the full checklist, you can scan the QR code and you will share the detailed version. So so the checklist is exactly what enables the government intake workflows to meet the audit evidence requirements, and the ISV support agent to take the real action safely while improving the deflection and the MTTR. So,
All right.
so to you.
I will take it from here, Vasil. We
Thank
need to close this. We are already overshooting the time. So, guys, thank you. This is basically closing slide where I'm not sure how many questions, but I see 2 or 3 questions over there, which I'll try to answer. And then if you have any questions, you can always put in the chat, which we can collect, and we'll definitely get back to you with the slide when we will do the sharing, or when we'll make it public. So the first question which I see, how do we pick the first workflow? So from our perspective at Coded, we have a tool sets which we use for the score impact and the risk analysis. We create that score impact versus risk metrics, and we select a slide with measurable KPIs and bounded data. Obviously, with a lot of support and help from our stakeholders, we decide what is the best for them. We also use the Moscow method to decide which is the must and which is could be those agile approach which we use it. The second question, I hope I have answered that question to the person. The second question I see, how do we prevent data leakage in retrieval? I think some of part was also addressed by Vasil, but what I would rub it here is that approved source list is important. PI labeling is important. At the same time, figuring out the private endpoints and policy enforcement, and at the end, before going to production, is that team testing. The third question, which I'll take, and then we'll try to close the today's session, is what is MCP in practice? It is basically, in a nutshell, is a tool contract. It includes the allows list. It includes the runtime policies, audit logs, so agents calls tools safely. And what it means is the agent calling the MCP, which consists of all contract clauses, and that in terms going to the tools via the API. And if I want to give you an example, it will be a reset of password requires approval, MFA, authentication, and that is always an audited. Thank you, folks. I think that's about it. We are already overshoot even the allotted time in our schedule, 12:01. It was a pleasure to host this webinar. I hope it was beneficial to all of you. In case you want to follow up, you have specific engagement requirements, please reach out to us. at thecoded.io, and we'll be very pleased to talk to you and take to the next step. Thank you very much.